Welcome to our session about dealing with difficult people. My name is Deborah LaCroix. I'm the Training and Development Manager here at Compass Charter Schools. And we're going to spend some time today around difficult conversations that require adjustments in language and approach. We're going to look at mission and vision, as we always do, our values. We're going to understand today the importance that difficult people have in our lives. We're going to develop ways to deal with them more effectively. I'm going to give you 8 strategies that are tried and true and proven, and we know that they work. And then we're going to look specifically at virtual conversations and consideration and techniques that we can use in the virtual world. As always, we look at our mission and vision, our desire to create a creative, self-directed community of learners virtually, to inspire and to motivate all that we interact with to make learning meaningful for our scholars. And we always look at our values, and I think our values of achievement, respect, teamwork, integrity, and communication, I think values especially play into dealing with difficult people, because how we approach that conversation, we should be very tuned into our values operating, our communication styles being effective, unconditional positive regard as we talk. Our values play a big role in how we represent ourselves and Compass Charter Schools in any kind of difficult situation with our scholars, with our educational coaches, and with each other. So let's start with an opening reflection. I'd like you to respond to these 3 statements or questions. Why do people get upset? Usually there's a reason. Somebody's not going to inadvertently or inappropriately come in without reason. So why do people get upset? What causes that? And then 2, why even try to deal with difficult people? I mean, really, sometimes the inclination is to just turn around, to shut it down, to just not do it at all. Why is it important to deal? And then I'm sure you all have dealt in difficult conversations and you've been in difficult situations. We intuitively, if we've learned, we're reviewing, but we instinctively and intuitively know what works and what doesn't work. And so tell me what's worked for you when you've been dealing with difficult people. So we're going to ask you to go to the Jamboard. And here that is, and take a look at each of the responses and grab a sticky and go ahead and put it in and respond to these 3 questions. You'll be able to come back here in future activities as we move on. So go ahead and pause the computer, do the reflections, and then when you're done, come on back and we'll continue. So, do we need difficult people in our life? I know you're all going, no, I don't need any difficult people. Go away, leave me alone. I'm having a great day. Don't need it to be ruined or interrupted. Yeah, I get that. I understand that. I feel that. We all kind of feel that when we feel that negative energy coming toward us, or what may be even not negative yet, but abrasive. But you know what? The interesting thing is we really do need people to be difficult sometimes because they bring us unique opportunities. Difficult people bring us moments of truth. Moments when we must look at, recognize something very specific that perhaps we haven't thought about, or we haven't dealt with effectively, or we don't want to deal with at all, but we need to. And in these moments, we find out who we truly are as professionals, because it's not hard to do things when everything's going well. It's not challenging to solve a problem when everybody's positive and collaborative. I mean, hopefully we do that on a regular basis. It's when it's difficult, when it's challenging, when we can't approach it with our normal skills. That's what determines who we are and what our character is. It shapes your reputation as a professional. It really shapes Compass's reputation, any organization's reputation. And it makes a lasting impression because when a professional handles a difficult situation with integrity, grace, and the ability to solve the problem and calm the difficult person, it makes a lasting impression. And that lasting impression impacts our organization, our community, our scholars, everyone on a day-to-day basis. So, do we have to prepare to deal with anything that's challenging? Well, we really should prepare every day. And it was many years ago that a very wise man shared this technique with me. It's called the umbrella technique. It's a visualization technique, a technique where you're going to visualize using this umbrella to protect yourself, because when people pour or rain down negativity on us and we don't protect ourselves, where does it go? Well, we absorb it. We absorb it into literally the muscles and the tissues of our bodies. Research has shown us that absorption of negative energy can actually cause burnout, stress, and physical illness. So we need to protect ourselves. And I know that's easy to say, but the truth of it is there are techniques we can use, and the umbrella technique is one of them. Now, as I said, it's a visualization technique. So I'm going to ask you to do this with me. So I want you to visualize an umbrella that you're holding in your hand. You sit down at your desk in the morning, visualize an umbrella, and visualize yourself opening it up so that that umbrella goes over your head. People who talk on the phone, deal with customer service, when we're in our virtual world, we're always at our computer. It's a visualization technique, so you got to practice. You got to practice putting up the umbrella. And what the umbrella does when we put it up and we visualize it there is it protects us from the raining down of negative thoughts and feelings. Because when the umbrella's up, what happens is people who are being difficult bring us two things. They bring us, first of all, feelings, the feelings that are making them difficult. That's because they're upset. So they're pouring all that out on us first. And if that umbrella is up, what we can do with the umbrella is deflect the feelings. Because if you don't deflect the feelings in your interaction, what happens is the content that the feelings are bringing gets lost. If you react to the feelings, if you react to the negativity, if you react to the difficulty, then often that's all the conversation is about. It's about the reaction and then continued raining down of negativity, and it becomes an unproductive situation. But if the umbrella is up and you can bounce the feelings off of the umbrella, visualize all that stuff coming at you, just not hitting you at all, letting that pass, and we're going to talk about techniques to allow that to pass, then the content will trickle down and you'll be able to see, okay, here is the issue. This is what's causing the upset and causing the difficult behavior. Now, as I said, this is a visualization technique. And you have a little guy sitting, or girl, depending on who you are, sitting on your shoulder right now saying, okay, you're not really going to do this, are you? I mean, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. You got to sit down at your desk. Don't let anybody see you put up an invisible umbrella that come take you away. But it's a visualization technique, which means you have to practice it to do it. The other person here on your shoulder is saying, okay, give it a try. It can't hurt. And we all probably know by now that in order for you to establish a habit, how many times do we have to do this visualization? We have to do it 21 times. So if you're willing to give it a try, I know from historic experience, it works really well. I have people come back to me after they've learned this technique 5, 6, 7 years later going, I use it every day. But we got to be willing to give it a try. So practice putting up the umbrella. And the truth is, once the visualization establishes the habit of self-protection, we don't need the visualization anymore because we've learned how to deal with the behavior in a very productive and practical way. So what are strategies that work? First thing, always remember, put up your umbrella. And if you're not already with your umbrella up one day and you feel this coming at you, remember, put it up. And remind yourself that you don't want to absorb the negativity and the feelings. You want to look for content. So bounce the feelings off so the content can come through. So once the umbrella is up, here are some techniques that we know work. Quiet listening. So often people get frustrated and angry just because they feel they have not been heard. They feel that nobody really cares how they feel. And so they'll come at you with all of these feelings rushing at you. And sometimes what they really need is for you to just listen in the beginning. And I know sometimes it's difficult when people are energized, perhaps negatively or abrasively energized. It's hard to just listen, but we need to do a little bit of listening and we need to let them vent. Because it's in the venting that people feel somebody finally is listening enough to care about what their problem is. There's an old saying in customer service that people don't really care how much you know until they know you care. And these are the first ways to show people that you care and you're tuned in and you want to help. Speak softer. Usually when people are being difficult and challenging, voices tend to rise, they get higher. People talk louder because they're energized. Well, if you meet people where they are right there, where can that conversation go? Is there anywhere for it to go? But where? Got to go up. And if you start talking louder and louder over each other, pretty soon you're just shouting at each other. We know through research that we need to come in softer. Somebody's talking to you like that, come in a little softer, come in a little lower. Now, soft doesn't mean lack of intensity. somebody's up here and you go, well, I'm sorry, I'd really like to help. They'll get madder because you don't have intensity. But if they come in and they're up here talking like this, and you come in down here with intensity, I understand. This is difficult. Let's work it out. Let me see how I can help. I can be softer, but I still need to be intense. So you've got to bring intensity to intensity, but softer. Use their name. Harvard did a communication study and they told us that, I didn't know this, but your name is your favorite word. I don't know if you knew that, but we like to hear our names. And so when you use people's names, it personalizes the situation. It has a calming effect, and people like to hear you use their name. And I think it also helps people feel acknowledged. So use people's names. Now, I say that, but then don't use them too much either. I don't know if you've ever been in one of those conversations where the customer service person has been taught to use your name. And so every other sentence, it's your name in it, until you finally are so irritated by hearing your name. So it's all about moderation, and it's all about how it's used. But use the name and integrate it into the conversations, because people really like their names. The art of listening is a powerful tool. And listening, of course, there's passive listening and there's active listening. And the art of listening is active listening. And there are real simple ways to look at what it means to have the art of listening available to you to use. And the first is ask questions. When we are actively listening, we want to be sure that we clarify what we're hearing. And so ask questions. Ask, okay, this is what's happened, and this is what went down, and this is the experience that you're describing. And so you're asking questions. Okay, when did that happen, and who was present, and how did that person respond? And questions that kind of involve people in the conversation, because you're obviously invested in finding out what happened. Restatement is kind of involved in actually asking questions, but when we restate, somebody says, well, this happened and this happened. Take a minute and go, okay, let me be clear. Let me make sure I understand. This is what you're saying. This happened and then this happened. The restatement helps people understand that you really are listening and you're hearing. Remember, we talked about feelings. We're deflecting because we want the content. By asking questions and restating, we're clarifying content. So we know what the issue really is, so we're going to be able to solve it. And the last one, and the art of listening, is taking notes. Now, I know sometimes you think in a challenging situation, why would you want to take notes? But here's something fascinating. And this works in person or it works virtually. When you say to somebody, okay, hold on just a second, let me get a tablet so I can write this all down and make sure I'm getting everything right. There's a wonderful outcome from that technique. What do you think happens? People automatically slow down. And if they slow down, can they be as angry as they just were? No. Because in slowing down, you're calming energy, you're calming the anger. And so if you get people to slow down, it kind of diffuses the negativity that they're feeling, and it allows them to think more clearly, and it gives you some space as well. The extent of the notes that you take, well, notes are always a good idea in a challenging situation, because then you know what you heard yourself and you have a record of it. One of the things about dealing with people when they're angry or their behavior has been undergirded by anger is that anger is a volatile, very real thing. And it's energy, and it's an escalation of energy. And we know through research that when we're in person with somebody, that anger is physiologically rooted to where it occurs. And if we're physically connected with people, one of the first things we do when we're angry is what? We stand up. We stand up and we root our feet on the ground, and we are connected and we are ready to engage. Virtually, what happens is you reposition in your chair. You get ready. There's a repositioning of the body where you're ready to move. That's happening on both sides. And one of the things we know about the escalation of anger is that we need to interrupt it as often as we can without being rude or intensifying anger, but we can interrupt it. And if you look back, as we talked about quiet listening, once we begin to use their name and once we begin to use the art of listening, we're asking questions. Every time you ask a question, you interrupt and you slow somebody down, and they answer your question, and then they get back on their anger. And every time you interrupt, it's physiologically more difficult to be as angry as you were just a few minutes ago for one really good reason. you have to start over. And if we can diffuse that often enough, we diffuse the intensity of the anger simply by using the art of listening and the other techniques that we're going to talk about. One of the experiences that I always like to share in terms of how well this works is I did Dealing with Upset Citizen as a national workshop 4 years through the University of Nebraska's leadership program. And we went all over the country, and we had companies come to us, and we had a social services company come to us in one of the states. They were having all kinds of angry confrontations in their office. And this was the agency that took the children away when a complaint was filed against the parents or the guardians. And this is the office where everybody came to find out what happened to their children. So you can imagine this is anger that's justified in a lot of ways. What happens when your kids are taken away? That's a volatile situation. They were having lots of confrontations. We began talking about these techniques. And one of the things we taught them was the interruption of the cycle of anger. And in the physical world, one of the things that you can do is you can get people to sit down, because it's physiologically more difficult to be angry seated than it is standing. Now, you can't tell somebody virtually if you're you're probably not standing anyway. But in the real world, we had people removed, put into chairs, very comfortable chairs. There was a waiting area created so that people could be moved out of the onslaught, moved into a calm place so that the quiet listening and the venting could happen on a one-to-one basis, where we sat them down. And we really eliminated confrontations by using these techniques and by using the physical technique of interrupting the anger. Now, we can't do that physically in the virtual world, but we can do it with these strategies by making people slow down, restate, and come back to us again. And every time we do that, it's harder to be as angry as you just were. Use powerful words. The Harvard School of Communication did a study about what are the 12 most powerful words in the English language. Here they are. The most powerful words are help, easy, love, proven, save, safely, money, you is a really big one. It's a hugely powerful word, and it's powerful in a positive way, and it's powerful in a negative way. And we're going to talk about it again when we touch on non-abrasive confrontation. But when you've done something well, I can't use the word you enough. You've done a wonderful job. We couldn't have done this project without you. Your contributions are invaluable. Thank you so much for everything you've done. You can't use you enough. But if you're dealing with somebody from a negative, from an abrasive, from an angry place, and it becomes, you had better not do this. You did this to me. How dare you deal with my scholar that way? Once we get that coming at us, or we're delivering that the other way, we become very defensive. And when we become defensive, all of the messages that need to be relayed between us get lost in the defensiveness. So you is an incredibly powerful word. New. We're going to look at this in a new way. We're going to get results with this. Results. Discovery. Let's work on discovering a new way to do this. And guarantee. I guarantee we'll continue until we solve this. These are such powerful words. So craft them into your sentences. And it's not just in business. It's not just in school. It's everywhere. These are the powerful words. And some of you may have seen years ago, there was a suit commercial. And his tagline on the suit commercial was, come buy a suit from me. You're going to love how you look. I guarantee it. And when I use that in training, do you remember who that was? It happens all the time. That one line tags in. And in that short sentence, he had two of English's most powerful words. So think about it. Use them. Create powerful word statements. I want to help. I understand. Now, the social services example I gave you, you don't ever want to say to somebody coming in when you've lost a child, well, I understand how you feel, because that just would create greater anger. Because they're going to look at you and say, have you lost your kids? How could you possibly understand how I feel? And they're right. Sometimes we can't even begin to understand. And so if that's the situation, we need to allow that we don't even know how to begin to understand what's happened, and have them share in that venting so that we can begin to understand. Because right now we can't even begin to agree. One of the most powerful things in the world is to agree with someone, to find some place to agree. You don't have to tell people they're right. You don't have to say you agree with what they want, but you can agree that something is difficult. I agree. This is frustrating. I agree. This is time consuming. I wish it were different. So find a way to agree. because agreement automatically calms the escalation and it makes people feel like you're hearing them. And this is magic, right? And if you use this skillfully, you might be right. Now, did I say that that person was right? Did I say I was going to do what's being demanded? No. But I may say, I will look into this. And, you might be right. Let's find out. So these are powerful word statements that we can use to be more effective when we're dealing with the cycle of anger and somebody who's really challenging and difficult. Say, I'm sorry. And remember, our umbrella needs to be up through all of this. Say, I'm sorry. Not I'm sorry that I did something wrong, because maybe you didn't do anything wrong. Maybe we didn't make any mistakes. Maybe that's just how it is. And this person is angry, frustrated, and upset for all of their own reasons. So I'm sorry doesn't mean you're taking blame. Now, I worked with FEMA actually, and it's a fascinating thing in FEMA when they respond to disasters, they are not allowed to say they're sorry. They are counseled and conditioned and trained never to say they're sorry, because in the situation there, saying I'm sorry means they're assuming responsibility. But for most of us, saying I'm sorry about something in the process can actually help significantly. I know the paperwork is complicated. I'm sorry, it can be confusing. I know your time is valuable, and I'm really sorry for the inconvenience. If we could do it differently, I'm 100% in support of that. So saying I'm sorry for something in the process, for understanding the frustration. I'm sorry, I know how frustrating. I've been there myself. These are really powerful ways to calm the cycle, to let people know we are listening and we really do care about the results, and find some way to say thank you. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for letting us know, because, one of the really important things that upset people do is they bring to us issues that we'd missed. They bring to us problems that perhaps we've overlooked or we haven't completely taken care of. They bring perspectives that we may have overlooked those too. So that information is really important, and we can thank them. Thank you for sharing this with me. Thank you for letting me know. Important to add that Highway Patrol says we should always say thank you to their highway patrol officers. I had a highway patrolman in the car going, sometimes it really makes people mad. You know how he finishes every ticket he gives? Thank you for continuing to drive safely. Well, he did say thank you. We may want to pop him one, but he did say thank you at the end. So find some way, if you can, to say thank you. Now, remember the non-abrasive confrontation that we talked about, the direct, the aggressive, passive, and direct. When we talk about the aggressive response to a difficult situation, if you think about it, really sometimes it's just saying what you're thinking. You are crazy. You obviously haven't done your homework. Why are you yelling at me? You need to take, well, we can do a lot of use. And that's kind of the aggressive way to deal with it. Passive is passing the buck. It's like not really dealing with it, referring them to somebody else, not taking the issue in hand and solving it. And the direct is the I versus the you message. That's what's non-confrontative. It's when I come from an I message and I take the yous out of my message, I can deliver exactly the same thing, but without the need for the other person to defend themselves. And the story I always share is when I was teaching high school, I had a young kid in my 6th period class. I taught English, and I had reading improvement classes, which is where they put all the kids who did not pass any of their English classes, and they put them into a reading improvement class. And I had 45 kids in the class. Well, I didn't really teach a whole lot. I did a lot of, maintaining order, but there wasn't a whole lot of teaching done with so many kids in that kind of diverse educational structure. So I had one kid, it was a good kid, 6th period class, and just always making trouble, always distracting the other students. So it comes time for progress reports. We're about 8 weeks in, 6-8 weeks in, and I look at my grade book, and he's only turned in 3 of the 23 assignments I've given since the beginning of the year, 3. So not only am I going to have to give him an F on his progress report, he's probably going to fail the class. Well, if he fails the class, what does that mean? There are a lot of meanings. I didn't do my job as a teacher, maybe, or I could have done a better job. But really, fundamental bottom line, if he fails this year, where is he going to be next semester? He's going to be back in my class. I want him to be successful so that he can move on. So I brought him into the class. Now, would I have been justified in saying, you know what? We need to talk about something. And so what I actually did was I showed him my assignments. And I said, what I could have said was, you really have got some problems here. You've only turned in 3 of the 23 assignments I've given since the beginning of the semester. You've got a bad attitude in class. You distract the other students. You're talking all the time. You're going to get an F on this referral on Thursday. And if you don't get your act together, you're going to fail at the semester as well. So what are you going to do about this? Am I justified? Absolutely. How effective would I be? Probably not very. So I actually brought him in. I showed him the grade book and I said, well, what's here? I've given 23 assignments since the beginning of the semester, and I have 3 here under this name. I have a problem with this because all of this uncompleted work is going to result in an F on the progress report on Thursday. And, I'm concerned because if we don't find a solution here, not only will there be an F on the progress report on Thursday, but I'm going to have to put an F at the quarter or find out the semester grade as well. So what are we going to do about this? And he looked at me with big eyes and said, I don't know. What are we going to do? He actually was able to hear me because of the iMessages. And what we did was we developed a plan where he could use class time to make up homework as long as he stayed current. And I would give him the actual grade he earned in that makeup with an incomplete at the progress report. And he earned and delivered a C performance, and he passed with, really flying colors for him and who he was. But I don't think we'd ever had the conversation if I'd have approached him from a U perspective. He would have been more belligerent and probably not has achieved what he was able to achieve. So the power of an I message over a U message is profound, absolutely profound. So what we want to do right now is we're going to practice using I messages as opposed to U messages. So I'm going to put up a sample of a conversation as a result of something that happened at work. And we're going to take a look at what this person says. Obviously, this person is very upset. You and I were assigned this project together, and we agreed to share responsibility. But even when I asked you, you didn't contribute what you had promised. So I did everything myself. You put pressure on me to deliver the project alone. You made me feel disrespected, disappointed, and a little angry. And you've changed how I feel about our relationship. Now, that's a profound event. And I'm sure we've all had similar events happen in our lives where something transpired between us and someone else that really left us feeling this way. The feelings are absolutely valid, but we want the message that has caused the feelings to be heard. We don't want to say this in such a way that we make the other person defend the feelings, which is, if you look at this and somebody were to say this to you, how would this make you feel? Would you be able to go to the problem, or would you be, well, wait a minute, I didn't do that, and I didn't mean to do that, and would you become defensive? Well, you probably would become very defensive. So once again, put up your umbrella with this. We want to deflect the feelings and look at the content. Can we say exactly the same thing without making somebody defend themselves? Well, let's see. Let's give it a try. We're going to reframe it. Same problem, same people, same confrontation. My understanding is that we were assigned a project together. We talked about it in the beginning and we agreed to share responsibility. But when I requested what was promised, I didn't get a response. I felt pressure to deliver all alone. The truth is, I did what I had to do, but I felt abandoned and really disappointed that we didn't truly work together. Now I realize these feelings are strong and I need to be able to share them with you so our relationship isn't affected. What do you think? Pretty different, isn't it? Right? Could you hear someone if they said it to you that way? I don't know about you, but when I hear it that way, it's like, oh, I am so sorry. That was not my intention at all. There's an openness that's created. Is there an opportunity to talk about all the things that we might have done or should have done? Absolutely. But I don't think the reframing of the same exchange leaves us feeling defensive with the need to fight back. So what we want you to do now is we're going to send you to the Jamboard again. And so what I'd like you to do now is go to the Jamboard because we want you to practice. iMessages always take more words. It always takes more time to craft it, to prepare it. So go to the Jam link, which is located, on the link that we'll provide, And there is an example there. And what I want you to do is think about it and then reframe it. Look at it and take the you messages out and replace them with I's so that you can talk about how you feel and how you've been affected in a way that doesn't create defense on the other person's part. When we're all done with that, we'll come back and we'll talk about how that felt. You can let me know on the Jamboard, and I'll be checking to see what your reconstructions are. I'll be interested to see that. So go ahead and pause the recording and do what you need to do, and we'll see you in just a minute. So hopefully that was insightful. With some practice, we can see that it's a challenge, but it can create a very different result in our lives. And so I challenge all of you to listen as a homework assignment to how often you use you in day-to-day communications with family, with friends, with relatives, with colleagues, with scholars. How often do we come from a you perspective? Because I think you'll be pretty surprised at how much we use you. And when we take a look at how we might change that with the I message instead to be more effective, it's really kind of an exciting opportunity. So let's talk about our virtual world now. We know that there are many techniques we use when we're in physical presence of someone, but also many of those same techniques work virtually. And there are some virtual considerations that we need to take a look at as well. Again, virtually put up your umbrella. Recognize when you need to deflect, when that umbrella needs to be working so that the feelings can be deflected and the content can come through. Always use video in a challenging or a difficult conversation with difficult people, because it's very important for you to read nonverbal cues. Sometimes people say, well, it's virtual, the cues aren't there. Oh, they're there. They're powerfully there. They're powerful, they're strong, they're visible, they're there to be interpreted. Our body is talking 24/7. Our face is expressing what we really feel. Our whole being is behind and communicating all the while we're delivering our words. 93% of communication is nonverbal. It has to do with how you're positioning your body, has to do with timbre, pitch, the tone of your voice. Tone is 55% of that 93, the tone of voice that you use. And we all know what that means. We all know that tone. And we don't like it when we receive it, and people don't like it when we give it. So the words are important, 7% words. How you craft it is really important. But what you deliver in the video is what the real message is going to be. It's almost more important because there are a lot of other factors that play when we're physically connected. Video holds you accountable to stay fully present. If you take the video off, your mind can wander, you can lose your focus. Video keeps you there, it keeps you present. And consider blurring your background, putting a background on. We have the professional background that we use, but a background that's not going to distract in any way. It improves your focus too, because it's critically important that the focus remains and that our difficult person knows that we are focused on them and that we're there to help solve the problem. Turn off your self-view. When we're on camera and our self-view is up there, you're looking at yourself a lot of the time. Come on, my bangs are wrong. What does my hair look like? My glasses are crooked. I straighten. It is inappropriate for us to be doing it really anytime, but especially if we're dealing with difficult people. We need our focus to be clear. So take yourself out of it so that you don't get distracted by the typical things we all get distracted by. And that's another thing we all do. When your picture's up there, you're going to be looking at yourself. That's natural. That just happens. So it's really important for us to manage it in this situation. You may be beautiful when you talk, but you don't need to watch yourself talk. So don't watch yourself talk. It transfers a whole kind of, disconnection to the meeting. Prior to the call, do a video check. Check things that need to be checked. Adjust your camera angle. I just moved between Google and here, and when I opened up the camera, it was from my forehead down. Make sure everything's appropriate and adjusted. Check your appearance. So when you turn off your self-view, you know that you look the way you want to look, that everything's in order. Just make sure that you're comfortable with how you look, and then forget about it. Make sure the background is clear of distractions. Again, as we said earlier, if you need to blur it, if you want to put the professional background on, that's important. And ensure that you won't be interrupted. The critical part of the difficult conversation. When we're interrupted in any way, shape, or form, and our focus moves to something else entirely, it escalates the anger. Why? Because they feel like they've lost us. and now they have to get more angry and they have to be more energized in order to get our attention back. If you keep your focus where it should be in the difficult conversation, that won't happen. That's why we eliminate distractions. Close your email, or any other documents that might affect your focus. If you've got 2 or 3 screens working around you, shut them down so you can't see them. Mute your notifications, the computer notifications, the phone notifications. If this is truly a difficult conversation, focus on it, because your focus will help you resolve it effectively. Actually put your phone away. Now there's a concept. Will our phone be there when we come back, and however long it takes us, it'll be there. And whatever's on it can wait, because the pull of focus, again, actually minimizes your effectiveness in the difficulty, in the resolution of a difficult conversation. Pay extra attention to your body language. Your body language is important. Their body language is important. Watch for physical and vocal changes. This is critical. As I said, tone. Watch how the tone changes. If the tone escalates, if it gets louder, if it gets an edge on it, you get that angry tone. You know what that tone is. Well, obviously we need to employ some deflection, some diminishing, some of the de-escalation, because it's come back again. Look at fidgeting. When people get fidgety in a chair and they're uncomfortable and they move around a lot, maybe they're not looking at you. Maybe we've lost the connection. Is it okay to pause? Maybe you need a pause in the middle of a difficult conversation. And if escalation occurs, say, let's just, there's something I need to check out. I'll be right back. Pause somehow and reevaluate and come back in. But with collaboration, because if you pause in the middle of a conversation and they feel like you shut them down, then that would just escalate the whole thing. Frequent looking down or away from the screen. There's a distraction going on of some kind. I don't know what it is, but there's a distraction. And again, the tone changes we talked about. Sometimes people get uncertain. Sometimes they get more assertive. Tone tells us a lot about what people are really feeling. I mean, I can say the same thing to you in a different way. If I say, just a statement, I can't believe that happened. I can't believe that happened. Now, I'm going to say that with anger. I can't believe that happened. Okay. Now I'm going to say it with frustration. I cannot believe that happened. Now I'm going to say it with sadness. I can't believe that happened. Now I'm going to say it because I just won the lottery. I can't believe that happened. It's all different, isn't it? Same words, tone, inflammation, body language, expression, all determines what it means. Same words. So again, tune into all of that as you listen and be aware of what you're projecting. Like I said, our body's talking 24/7. You may think you're listening in a neutral way. Be sure you check that. Be sure you check. Know how you're feeling and know what you're projecting, and learn how to put a positive expression on your face. Now, you don't have to be grinning at people, and because if somebody's angry and you're sitting there smiling at them, they might want to pop you one right through the screen. I mean, because obviously if you're smiling, you don't get how upset they are. But you can have a pleasant, receptive expression on your face. Don't frown. Don't be neutral. Even a neutral expression, can be easy, not as easy to speak to. So what is a neutral expression? If you and I are having a difficult conversation, and I go neutral on you, okay, this is neutral. Yes, I hear. Understand what you're saying. Do I look really engaged? Does neutral look like I care? Not particularly. So can we say the same thing with kind of a pleasant expression? I'm a trained vocalist, and one of the things they teach you is how to get a head tone, and you have to raise a string on your head, raise your shoulders, and you have to lift your lips, just and not a smile really, but just raise the corners of your lips for the tone to move into your head. Kind of that's the expression to put on your face. It's not neutral. It's not smiling and laughing. It's just kind of a pleasant expression. Is that an easier expression to talk to? It really is. It looks more open. It looks more accepting. Things we can do that make a difference in how we are perceived. This is a big one virtually, because additional time is often necessary. Once you get past the initial venting, the frustration, we get past, we've deflected, we're looking at content, we're looking at reasons, and we're getting down to issues around why somebody is upset. Constructing answers and responding can take more time. People need to think about it. They're uncomfortable maybe with what they're saying. They don't know quite what they want to say. And so we have to allow additional time for people to respond. And we get impatient, especially when we're trying to work out something that we're concerned about. Give the person time to receive information and to process it. You know, any of those of you who are watching, I'm sure there are many teachers watching, we know we have to give students, our scholars, wait time to answer. You throw a question out there and you allow wait time. People have to process and think about it. And that's true in our lives in every respect, really. And in a difficult conversation, especially, allow people time to process what you say. And here's the thing about difficult conversations too, pauses may seem longer than they really are, because silence makes everybody uncomfortable, especially if we're being challenged or we're challenging. Silence can be a real intimidator in the conversation. Recognize silence for the tool that it is. You want to allow silence for people to craft the answer, to make sense of it. If it goes beyond the time you think should be needed, you know, like you feel like it's gone a little too long, then simply say something like, is there anything I can clarify? Can I clarify anything for you? Is there something I can add in addition? To give them the opportunity to say, yes, they need a little more information, or no, you know, this is what I think. So you can move the conversation along with just that kind of a question. And again, allow uncomfortable silence not to be uncomfortable. Allow it to just be what's needed to process whatever people are demanding in the situation. Remember the basics of all difficult situations, wherever they occur. If you know they're coming, sometimes we don't know they're coming, and so we have to put up our umbrella quickly and deal with it in the moment. But if you know you're going to have a difficult conversation, if you know you have to deal with a difficult person, a difficult colleague, a difficult parent, you know, a difficult coworker, you know, your manager, your supervisor, if you have to deal with somebody, remember the basics of difficult conversations is always prepare. A difficult conversation should never be spur of the moment. If you have an issue that's important to you that you need to talk to somebody about, prepare. You know, don't just go charging in one day when you're upset and have the conversation, because it can go quite awry and put you in circumstances that you really don't want to be in. Not if you prepare. Gather facts, frame your approach. Think about how you want to say what you're going to say. Think about the I messages as opposed to using you messages. You know, how you feel because of what's happening to you, rather than moving in with how you're upset with what they do and what the other person needs to do. So gather your facts, frame your approach, and then be careful of all of your language. I know communication is supposedly only 7% verbal, but language choice is important. It's important for us to say what we mean and to mean what we say. And in order to do that, we need to prepare well. And language is always important, no matter who we are or where we are. How we deliver our language is really the bat on the baseball. You know, the language is there and you swing the bat and it all delivers the message. So you want that baseball to go where you aim it. You want the home run. And in order to do that, you have to craft the answers, prepare, aim, and really do a strategic response. Again, sometimes we don't get that. Sometimes, you know, we have to deal with a difficult person, a difficult challenge right in the moment. But if we practice this regularly and we build this skill, because iMessages and dealing with confrontational approaches, really, it's a skill. It's a skill mediators use. And there are a lot of other things involved with it. This is just an overview of some of the things that we know work. But the more you practice this, the more effective you become. The more you put up the umbrella and you deflect the feelings that come with any kind of confrontation, so that you can allow the content to trickle through and you actually are dealing with the content in the conversation, that will empower any kind of difficult conversation with any kind of difficult person that you have. Allow response time in all situations. Allow people to respond. And if it's a planned meeting and it's something that requires follow-up, any kind of difficult confrontation may require follow-up. So if it's a situation where you can deploy a plan so that you can meet again when steps have been taken to resolve whatever the problem is, the follow-up plan always kind of puts a period on the conversation and says, okay, we've completed what we intended to complete today. Let's come back and deal with it again from a different perspective. So these are 6 of the strategies that are especially important virtually. All of the strategies work with confrontation pretty much wherever you find it. You know, the world has all kinds of circumstances and situations, and there are lots of difficult people out there. And hopefully your day, you don't have to deal with many of them, but we all know that we do. Sometimes, you know what? You're the difficult person because you're so upset, you're so convicted, even when that happens to you, and you want to be sure your message is delivered. Think about what we've learned today about how it feels to receive one of those difficult messages, and learn to craft that in a different way too, because I'll tell you what, old saying, you know, you get more with honey than you do with vinegar. And there's real truth to that. If you take the need to defend out of anything that you deliver, you'll get an extremely different response from the people to whom you are sharing your information. So as we think about it out there, practice your I messages, strategize about how to be more effective as you communicate what it is that you want to communicate, and recognize that people get difficult for a reason. And if you view that as just one more of the strategies that you need to deal with as a human being, as a professional, living and working in the world that you are today, it will help you be more effective in your day-to-day interactions, whether it's with your children, with your family, with your parents, you know, with your colleagues, with your managers, with your bosses, whoever we're dealing with. If we can be more effective in the way we communicate, and we can deliver messages better, we'll get better outcomes all across our lives. So good luck. I hope you don't have a lot of difficult people in your life. I hope you're blessed with many positive and productive ones. I hope you've learned some things today that may help you process it. Feel free to contact me. I'd love to hear from any of you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.